Our next one is titled, He Thinks Having Money Would Solve All Life's Problems. Something that's bothered me for a while. Husband is 100% convinced that being rich, or at least well off, would fix every problem in our life. He says we could afford a nanny or extra help with baby. Our kid could have the best of everything. He wouldn't be stressed. He literally thinks that it would change him and his outlook on life for the better. He talks about this all the time. He has this negative outlook about life and having to work so hard for the little money we do have. And while I understand, I just wish he could give me his best version of himself without feeling like he needs money to do all those things. I want him to step up and help out more with baby, not hire a nanny. Our baby has everything he needs to be happy. We aren't struggling to afford formula or diapers or anything like that. I can't afford the most expensive crib or stroller, but I don't give a damn about that because we have what we need. We argue so much ever since having a baby, who's now 4 months old, and he thinks that if we had money, we would never argue, even though our fights are never about finances. He made me second guess my thoughts like, yes, it's true, it would be nice to be able to afford a nanny or a doula who could help out when I'm overwhelmed or help sleep train or things like that. I'm just mad that he thinks it's not possible to give our baby a great life without lots of money. It makes me so sad that he thinks this way. We have such different views and attitudes. All I want is a husband who is positive, is grateful to have a family of his own and loving towards me, but I haven't seen this side of him at all ever since my baby was born. Such negativity all the time. Now, this is a really interesting thread for me because I am probably much closer to the husband's perspective here than I am to the wife. Not that I think that having money solves all of life's problems, but honestly, it seems to me like there's a fundamental misunderstanding that they both have in terms of what their financial situation looks like and how that plays out on one member here of the relationship versus the other member. So I think what I would assume from just as an external person, from my perspective and looking at this, I would probably guess that he's the primary person responsible for finances in the house. And I would probably assume something along the lines of, yes, they are not, they might not be super poor. They're still able to afford the primary things that they need. But he, as the primary person responsible for the finances, feels very stressed out by the situation in which they find themselves in. Now, how that definitely there's a difference the moment you have children where you go, okay, hey, what's our future going to look like? What type of lifestyle can we afford for ourselves? What type of lifestyle can we afford for our child? How will our finances look in 10 years time, in 20 years time? Suddenly that becomes a very, very present question in a way that it was probably not very present when you're either single or when you're just a couple, because looking after just a couple of people or just yourself when you're single is just quite easy in comparison. So that he feels this burden of having to provide for the family as a husband is a great sign. And that he understands on some level that money would probably make a big quality of life difference to their life is probably also accurate. Now, I understand the point of saying, hey, he's just so negative all the time. But you know what? When people are really stressed out and the circumstances change and suddenly they realize that they're in a situation that maybe before they were okay with, but now they're not, and they don't have the tools available to them to change that situation, then it's kind of normal and natural to be negative about it. It's normal for that to be a source of conflict. It's normal to not be happy with it. It's normal to have this feeling of like, hey, I just want to change this. And a lot of people will say that the point at which people can change their life is when they are tired of that feeling. So when they are done with just feeling exhausted, feeling frustrated, feeling stressed out because of the circumstances that they're under. OP says here, he has this negative outlook about life and having to work so hard for the little money that we do have. So it sounds to me like they are probably on the verge of struggling. At the very least, it's most likely that you're living paycheck to paycheck or something like that, which is quite normal for people. You know, it's not that out there to be living paycheck to paycheck. But it makes perfect sense to me why this would be a stressful situation for the husband. So for me personally, I'm rather on his side, where I do think that having a little bit of money available makes a huge, huge, huge difference. I think the right word for it is margin, in terms of how much money extra you have left at the end of the month. And the more margin you have available at the end of the month, the more you feel like this weight on your chest and on your shoulders from struggling with finances kind of just goes away. That is a fact of life. Now, if I were OP, what I would do here would be to try and understand exactly where the finances are and exactly where this feeling and this negativity that he has is coming from. Because I don't think it's just this idea of saying, oh, okay, if we just had money, then everything would solve itself. But rather that I suspect that he feels that money is one of his biggest stresses, and that is what the fact that he's under stress is then what manifests itself in all of these fights that you seem to be having, which is a real shame. In general, 4 months old after having a baby, quite a lot of people go through this process. I'd say it's a metamorphosis, your relationship changes, you change because of the added responsibility of a child, the amount of time that you have for each other, how you talk to each other, like all of these things change the moment that you have a kid, because that's such a major change in your life. And so it's normal that things are a little bit out there for a few months, maybe even a year, until you get into a groove and you understand what you're doing and you try and get on the same page again. When she says, all I want is a husband who is positive and is grateful to have a family of his own and is loving towards me. I understand where the urge comes from. I do think that when you're surrounded by someone who's negative all the time, that's super draining. And if you have that while also being drained from looking after a 4-month-old, not being able to sleep all that well, etc., then I understand where the urge comes from. But I think that having this feeling of, hey, I just wish he was different, makes it hard to actually connect with him and to listen to him and to understand where he's coming from and to support him in such a way that you can try to break down that feeling or to come up with a way that you can tackle it and improve your situation together. And so, yes, positivity is great. Gratitude is great. These are definitely things that I would encourage everyone to try and do on a regular basis and to try to practice. Like a gratitude practice can really make a big difference. But it's also okay to have these periods of time in your life where you're really like, man, this just sucks and I want things to be different. And then to try to take that energy and channel it into something that will actually change your life for the better is one of the most rewarding things that you could be doing. That's how I would approach this one. I feel that I'm the only person who thinks about it this way. Almost the only person. The first comment that I'll read out here says, this would upset me too. My husband and I will sometimes fantasize about how awesome it would be to win the lottery. But that's just for fun. He needs to live in the moment and enjoy the life you guys have. Have you told him that you'd prefer that he help out more with your daughter rather than fantasize about being able to have a nanny? I feel that this kind of comment honestly misses the point quite, like to a pretty big extent. Yes, it's nice to fantasize about how awesome things will be when you win the lottery. I think everyone has those little phases where they do that. But the statement, he needs to live in the moment and enjoy the life that you guys have, is really unfair. It's like, no, honestly, yes, he needs to be grateful for, there are always things to be grateful for about your life, but that doesn't mean that you need to give up on changing it. And the statement of, hey, have you told him that you want him to help out more rather than hire a nanny, is also like, yeah, fair enough. You can talk about that. You can say that. But also chances are he would be in a much better place if he didn't have to work so hard to earn money. And then maybe the concerns around having a nanny around the house would be very different. Like, who knows, right? There's so many different situations and scenarios that they could be having that would explain where this argument is coming from, that I find it difficult to just assume like this, that he's just living in la la land, that he doesn't have a serious, actual, real life, real world concern that he needs to deal with. Now, one person replied, he's right, which I appreciate because I do think he is. Next person says, I mean, he's both right and wrong. Honestly, I've gone through times early on where my husband and I had next to no money. However, now where we're at a point in our life where we're very well off, your husband is right in the sense that money does make some things easier. We don't worry about buying things for our kids. We don't worry about bills or vacations. And because we don't worry about it, we simply don't fight about it. That's exactly the point, right? If you want to be able to afford a specific lifestyle for yourself, that makes a huge difference. When you're not able to afford that lifestyle, then you feel stressed out. Of course you feel stressed out. Then she says, however, where your husband is wrong is his mindset. You absolutely can be happy without having everything. In the years where my husband and I had nothing, we made some of the best memories of our entire lifetime. We made the best of it and we were genuinely happy. Your husband has to understand that unless he's doing something to change the current situation, he needs to find a middle ground and be grateful. Is he looking for a higher paying job? Is he trying to cut expenses? Is he starting a side business? If he's refusing to change the situation but just complaining instead, that would make me pretty mad. I agree 100% with this. I think the more you complain, and especially if you're complaining without action, then that's just really frustrating and a bit of a downer on everyone. But if you're complaining with the hope or the plan of some point transforming that into action, then I would get it. And then this person says, dang, your husband sounds like me and you sound like my husband. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Our 1.5-year-old will be doing therapy soon for his hearing loss once he gets his hearing aids, and we get disability that we use to buy the kids and household things we need. My husband is super content with his job and being able to be at our church every week on his off days. I'm seriously working on being much more grateful because we are stable enough. A little bit extra would be nice, but I know the Lord won't forsake us in all aspects as long as we put him first, and my husband constantly encourages me all the time to just be grateful for what we have and not ponder on what we could or should have. And to that I would say, honestly, if you're unhappy with where your life is at, then just work on improving it. I think that there is this feeling that, hey, this is just our lot in life and this is just how we'll live. And these are the struggles that we're experiencing. It's kind of powerlessness, right? And acceptance and passivity. You don't need to treat your life that way. You can take responsibility. You can try to change your circumstances. And the moment that you're trying to change your circumstances, you will also feel better. Honestly, it's not just a case of, hey, like, I believe that a big source of the frustration that people have when they're really unhappy in their lives is because not only are they unhappy, not only do they not have the type of life that they want, but they're also not doing anything to try to improve it. So the moment that you change, you have like a paradigm shift in your head, you change your own perception, you change your own mindset, and you say, okay, you know what? I'm not happy with where we're at, and this is how I can change this. Then things will start happening. Then you'll also feel better about it because you'll be like, okay, maybe I'm not there yet where I want to be, but I'm on the right path.